So today we're going to be talking about no such thing as the perfect resume. Our agenda for today is what is the purpose of a resume, 5 important parts of your resume, what is the difference between job responsibilities and accomplishments, how do you write up your accomplishments, and why you need to use keywords and where to find keywords. So let's begin. So in the job search process, there are 5 steps, as Maggie mentioned: assessment, which is figuring out what your best skills are; branding, which includes the pitch, the cover letter, the resume, and the LinkedIn profile. Today we're going to be talking about the resume. The 3rd step is connecting or networking. The 4th step is differentiating yourself during the interview process. And the last step is enhancing. So we're going to be concentrating on the resume today. So what is a resume? And is there such a thing as a perfect resume? Everyone knows they need a resume. Who doesn't know that? But is there such a thing as the perfect resume? Well, you're going to see that there is no such thing as the perfect resume. You want to create a resume that will get you in the door for an interview. How much time does someone spend on your resume? Anywhere from 7 to 10 seconds. And sometimes it's less than that. So you really want to create a resume that speaks to the person who you want to get the interview from. You need to capture the attention of the reader. You need to have lots of white space and keywords, and we're going to go into all these things as we go on. So what's the purpose of your resume? The resume is really your personal brand. It's an advertisement for you. It's what distinguishes you from the other candidates. It must reflect who you are, and it must be compatible and consistent with your pitch, with your cover letter, and with your LinkedIn page. It's also a sales tool in your absence. When you leave a meeting or an interview and you leave behind your resume, that's your sales tool. That's your brochure, so to speak. It also guides you through the interview, and oftentimes it guides the interviewer through the interview as well, because they're going to look at your key skills, your accomplishments, and your work history, and they'll be asking you questions about all those things. So the 5 most important parts of your resume: your job title, the summary, and the summary includes accomplishments, your skills, and what you're known for, which are soft skills, your keywords, and job responsibilities. And we're going to talk about the big difference between accomplishments and job responsibilities. So let's start with the title. For each resume, you need one title. Don't use an objective. In the old days, everybody had a job objective, but we're not using job objectives anymore. You need to use the exact job title of the job you're looking for, or you're responding to an ad online. And if you are writing directly to a company and there is no job that you know of, you still need to use the exact title of the job position you would like to go for. Be specific: administrative assistant, marketing coordinator, project manager, full charge bookkeeper, data analyst. We could go on and on. And then you also need a positioning statement. It's a few words or a phrase or even a sentence below your job title that makes you unique. How do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? Once again, if you are pursuing more than one job target, you do need a separate resume for each job target. So let's talk about this positioning statement and how it differentiates you. Here are some examples of job titles with positioning statements. Hands-on systems manager, that's the job title. Here comes the differentiating phrase: with strong technical competence in systems analysis and PIC-based ERP. Here's another example: international HR manager, with expertise in policy development, organizational planning, and executive compensation. And here's another example. If you can't think of something very specific to say, you can talk about your years of experience. Program manager with 10 plus years of experience. So if you have some time while you're listening, you can write down your job title and think of a distinguishing phrase. All right, now let's talk about the summary part of your resume. The summary section is actually the first half of the first page of your resume. This is the part that the reader is going to be spending the 7 to 10 seconds on. And if the reader doesn't find what he or she is looking for, he or she will not continue reading your resume. So the summary section is very important. Part 1 includes your accomplishments. Part 2 of the summary includes your skills. You could use the word competencies, or you can use the word expertise, or simply use the word skills. We're talking about your hard skills. And the third part of the summary section is what you are recognized for. That means if someone were to ask a former supervisor or a colleague of yours, what can you tell me about this person? These would be your soft skills, things like team player, creative, thinks out of the box, people person. These are not considered hard skills. Once again, human resource managers, recruiters, search firms will spend only 7 to 10 seconds looking at this section of your resume. It has to sell you. All right, now let's dig into what we mean by accomplishments. At the top of your resume in the section, summary section, the first half of the first page, you're going to list your top 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 accomplishments, the ones that most relate to the job title you're going for. Sorry about that. Include a bulleted list using this rubric: problem, action, result. We'll get to that in a minute. Accomplishments will appear in 2 places on your resume. On the first half of the first page, you will have 3 to 5 accomplishments in your summary section. And then you will also have anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 accomplishments under each job title. Remember, you're going to be writing up your professional experience after this summary section in reverse chronological order. And under each job title, you need to include anywhere from 2 to 5 accomplishments. The more recent the job, the more accomplishments you can include. The further back in your work history, then the fewer accomplishments you can include. Each accomplishment has to answer the question, so what? You were successful, what does that mean? Did you meet the budget? Did you beat the budget? And we'll talk more about how to write them. We're getting there. Okay, now, responsibilities. What's the difference between job responsibilities and accomplishments? Job responsibilities are typically what you will find in a job description. Everyone with the same job title essentially has the same job description and the same responsibilities. They represent a process, a part of your job description, a quick scope of your job. For example, profit and loss responsibility for $5 million. Well, that was your responsibility, but did it happen? Did you save them money? Did you go over budget? Supervise 5 staff. Okay, so were the staff more productive or less productive? Did you train them? What do we know about that? Oversee HR, IT, and facilities. Okay, that's another responsibility, but it doesn't show any accomplishments. Track over 50,000 records in the database. Manage budgets of 10 million. Build strategic partnerships. Create marketing plans. What you notice about all of these responsibilities are that they're things that are required of the job, but they don't show any results. Here are a few more examples of an account clerk. Typical job description. Type accurately. Prepare and maintain accounting records. Prepare bank deposits, general ledger postings and statements, reconcile accounts in a timely manner, enter key data. A systems analyst. Maintain security, backup, and redundancy. Write and maintain custom scripts. A customer service rep. Handle complaints. Provide solutions. Keep records of customer interactions. So this may all sound familiar. So how do you differentiate yourself from someone else who has the same job title? And the answer is accomplishments. So why are we spending so much time on accomplishments? Because throughout your job search, you're going to be using your accomplishments. You're going to use them in your pitch, whether it's 30 seconds or 2 minutes. You're going to use them in your cover letter to go with your resume when you apply for a job, or to send to someone who you want to talk to about opportunities. You're going to use accomplishments in your resume to show that you can get results. You're not just successful. You can illustrate with examples of how you are successful. You're going to use the accomplishments in the interview, once again, to make your past experience relevant to the job that you are interviewing for. And you're also going to use your accomplishments in the follow-up email after an informational meeting or after an interview. And why do we call it an influencing letter? Because it's not just simply a thank you letter. It's an opportunity to reiterate what you can do for the company and how you can solve the company's problems. Okay, so now let's talk about this PAR approach. Problem, action, result. The P stands for problem. The A stands for action. And the R stands for results. Wherever you can, try to use numbers. Start each accomplishment with an active verb. Don't use the words handled or helped or was responsible for. It's better to use active verbs such as launched, created, wrote, developed, supervised, planned, implemented. State the problem, state your action, then state your result. Now, sometimes you may want to start with your result, which is okay too, because that will highlight that you either saved money or made money or saved time. That's very important. All right, here's some more examples. Here's the problem, a challenge. It summarizes the background, the problem. So, for example, you may say within tight time frames, or during a departmental move, or while staffing was low at 50%. That gives people an idea of the circumstances. The action, what did you do? Add your strengths and skills. The key here is to be specific and use strong action verbs. Result, show the business impact of your actions. Include key deliverables, measurable deliverables. If you're a fundraiser, how many people attended the fundraiser? How much money did you raise? Was that more or less than last year? You need to describe your actions and results in terms of the employer's point of view. POV stands for point of view. Here's another example. Okay. An old tool used for bug reporting and fixing was being used for years in the company. It was an integral part of the software process, but it was unwieldy as a result of numerous additions and updates and fixes, and it took a long time to function. If any of you work with software applications, you know that when you fix them here and there, they never work as well as the beginning. What was the action? With appropriate data engineering tools, I analyzed and restructured the system within 6 months. And as a result, we reduced the percentage of time spent on it and we increased productivity. So this is a full description of this problem, the action, and the result. And now we need to condense it, edit it down to a sentence that we can use in the resume and the cover letter. So this is what we come up with. Restructured an old and unwieldy bug fixing tool within 6 months. Thus reduced the time spent by 20% and increased productivity by 35%. Notice it starts with a verb, restructured. It gives a time frame within 6 months. It shows a result reducing time spent with a number, a percent, and increase productivity by another number, a percent. Here's another example. The inventory system in the factory was outdated. There was overstocking of some items, resulting in deterioration of quality because the items stay on the shelf too long, they deteriorated. Many items were not available when required, and the number of back orders was spiraling upwards. Action. Developed and implemented a master production schedule and forecaster that overhauled the entire inventory system. What was the result? Within 6 months, the inventory costs were reduced by 25%, causing a $5 million savings for the company. Customer back orders were found to be the lowest in the history of the company. So that's the whole story. Now we have to edit it down into a sentence that we can use. And here it is. Reduced inventory costs by 25% by developing and implementing a master production schedule and forecasting system. Notice in this PAR, we started with the result. Reduced inventory costs by 25%. We used a percentage. And we also used bold. In your resume, it's a good idea to bold the most important words, not a whole sentence, but 4 or 5 words that show your accomplishment. That helps things stand out for the reader. So here are some more examples. Reduce customer complaints by 22% in a 6-month period by conducting over 45 technician programs throughout an 8-state region. Again, it started with the result, gave a time frame, how many people were trained, over what region. Exceeded annual sales quota, over 15% average for each year over 3 years by creating a program that followed up. Again, starts with the result. Save $200,000 through benefits redesign while maintaining overall quality and satisfaction. Okay, so what if you can't quantify? Some roles lend themselves to quantification: business development, finance, general management, investing banking, sales, trading, and even some marketing and product development areas. But there are other positions such as investment or business intelligence research, human resources, organizational development, consulting, and even some research and development roles that are a lot trickier. You can't always quantify your results, or maybe the results are confidential. So then what do? You can qualify them. If the numbers don't look good, you can use percentages. So here, example, the size of a cross-functional team that you developed, or a budget that you grew, or costs that were cut. Finished a project 3 weeks ahead of deadline, or 15% under budget. So even if you cannot give exact numbers because they are private and the company does not want you to share that information, you can get around it by using percentages. So attach metrics if you can. Look at every one of the tasks of your job and attach a metric to it. Show qualitative results as well. Again, don't just list the tasks or responsibilities. Show the results of your doing that task well. For example, solved a problem that 5 other managers had tried to solve over the past 3 years without success. Another example, resolved conflicts among silos or leaders on a team. Coached your direct reports to more effective leadership. Some of these things cannot be quantified, so you still want to show some circumstances under which you accomplish them. And so let's see. Before, let's say you have successfully managed partnerships. Well, that sounds good, but there are no details. Let's give an example. Managed events with over 25 industry associations and achieved 60% increase in strategic partnerships. So here's an area that you might think, well, how am I going to quantify partnerships? It's possible. Developed and published metrics to increase call center productivity. We saw this earlier. Develop metrics which were posted daily. Within the first month, productivity increased 33% and call length dropped 15%. And a last example. Led a team of 10 staff people to design a conference. Okay, that sounds good, but so what? Here's a better way to say the same thing. Led a team of 10 to design and implement the first India oil and gas conference, resulting in 150 attendees. Okay, so if you have a moment, write an accomplishment. Write one accomplishment in the PAR format. What problem did you solve? What action did you take? What was the result? You get used to writing about yourself and your accomplishments in this way, then it will be a lot easier for you to create your resume and your pitch and your cover letter. All right, the third part of the summary. Now listen, we're still in the first half of the first page of your resume. The third part consists of your skills. You may call it skills, or you may call it competencies or expertise, whichever. If you like a 2-cent word versus a 98-cent word, that's up to you. So, competencies or skills. You need to use keywords that you find in job descriptions. Now, if you're going to a company not in response to an ad, but you have a job title in mind, you can still research that job title on the various job boards, Monster, Indeed, Idealist, and find out what's a typical description and use the keywords from that description. Always use strong verbs. Managed, writing, financial analysis, plan, create, launch. I will say that 100% of human resource managers, as well as many recruiters and search firms, go to LinkedIn and they search on keywords to find people, because they're looking for people who are not necessarily looking for a job. They're looking for people who are already working in a field at a certain job title, and they search by keyword. And once again, they spend 7 to 10 seconds on your resume. So, how many skills are you going to put? 5, 6, 7, not more than that, because there's really not enough room. If you've got 8 skills and you really need to make 2 columns with bullets, 4 skills to the left and 4 skills to the right. If you have 4 or 5, sometimes you can just fit them in one line. If you have more than one job target, then you need to change the skills for each of your job targets. They must be relevant for a specific job target. So here are some examples. Under hard skills, you might put things such as supervision, delegation, planning, financial analysis, coding, writing, marketing, website development. I've got a list of about 50 skills that I share with my clients to give them help in figuring out, well, what are my best skills? Soft skills include, but are not limited to, being a team player, a problem solver, a collaborator, a good listener. Okay, so keywords. Hiring managers are looking for keywords. How many of you have ever heard of the ATS, the Applicant Tracking System? The ATS is an online artificial intelligence system that many companies and hiring managers are using to match your resume with their job description. As a career coach, I have access to a system like that, and I help my clients by putting in their resume and the job description. And if there isn't an 85 to 95% match, no one is even going to look at your resume. So the headhunters and recruiters are searching by keywords. The job sites also have keyword searches. So you can use keywords from your job description or the job description you're going for in your resume, in your cover letter. So how do you be specific? Depending upon your field. Profit and loss, C++, mergers and acquisitions, pivot tables. You have to be specific. Specific skill sets, compensation analysis, risk management, financial planning. If you've worked internationally, don't just say worked internationally. That doesn't have enough punch. You can say Europe and Asia or Latin America and Asia, but it has more punch to say specifically worked in England, France, Spain, and Greece, or worked in Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, and Thailand, or worked in Peru, Argentina, Ecuador. The more specific you can get, the better you will differentiate yourself from people who have similar experience. So where are you going to find these keywords? You can look at job descriptions, as I mentioned, on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed. You can look at the company website and see if the company uses certain keywords in their descriptions. And often company websites will also have job openings, and they will list the descriptions on their website. And then you can look at the generic job boards such as Monster, Idealist, or Indeed. And there are a lot of other job boards out there. If you're in a particular field, you may have a job board just for your field. So here are some more examples. I'm not going to read them to you. If you're in technology, you need to know all these words. If you're in finance, you've got certain vocabulary words, marketing, and sales. Every field has its own vocabulary, its own jargon, and companies often have their own jargon. You may find that two different companies with the same job opening call it something different. So you need to use the words that the company uses. So here's a little example of a resume. The name is on the top, then the cell phone, and then the email address. Notice what's missing. There is no street address. Years ago, we always had a street address on our resume. I recommend that people do not put their street address for a couple of reasons. The first reason is people have biases about different neighborhoods. And so if they look at your address and they see where you live and they're not happy about it, that can be points against you, and you don't want that to happen. Second thing is, maybe they look at your address and they say, gee, this person lives pretty far away. How are they going to get to work every morning at 9 a.m.? So for those two reasons, we suggest that you leave off your address. On the other hand, if you live in a certain place and that's where you want to work, it won't hurt to put in New York, New York. But for most folks, you're better off leaving it off, especially if you live in one place and you're looking for a job in another city. You don't want to remind them that you're in another city at the moment. Then we come to the job title. This one is Program Manager, and then the distinguishing phrase with 10 years of experience. Accomplishments. So this one's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 accomplishments. You don't need 8 accomplishments. You can have 5. That's okay. Notice that the keywords have been bolded. Not the whole sentence, but the keywords. Over 1,000 attendees, hired 10 speakers, managed 250 volunteer groups. These stand out. Competencies. The competencies are in 2 columns. Budget management, logistics management, program creation, multiple contributor management, developing marketing plans, create training videos, supervise staff. And then we have a section called Recognized For. This section really represents, as I mentioned before, the key soft skills. So this particular person wrote leadership, team building, integrity, interpersonal skills, discipline. And then we get to professional experience. So you talk about your professional experience, you use each job you've had, the title of the company, and then the job title. If you feel your job title is more important than the name of the company, you can put your job title first in bold and then the name of the company. You may include a sentence or less of your responsibilities and then follow that with 3 to 5 accomplishments. The accomplishments that appear in the first half of the first page will also appear individually under each job where they were done. So yes, your accomplishments from the first half of the first page will appear again somewhere in your resume. See if you can come up with 5 words that distinguish you. Jot those down. All right, so what are the things you want to remember when you write your resume? Do use 11 or 12-point type. Use sans serif, such as Calibri or Arial or Verdana. Most people are not using Times Roman anymore, although in some fields, the very conservative fields, such as law, you might still want to use Times Roman. Please don't use 10-point type. No one can read it. It's too small. Use bold. As I mentioned, you can bold several words in a sentence in order to make it stand out. Show your accomplishments. Problem, action, result. Use bullets. Have a summary statement on the first half of the first page. Those are the things we talked about. Your job title, the distinguishing phrase, the accomplishments, the skills, and what you're known for. Do use white space. Please use normal margins. Don't try to cram everything onto one page by making 10-point type and narrow margins. It's too difficult to read. Be specific. Show results. Quantify your results if you can. Use percentages if you cannot use the numbers, and then use qualifying phrases if you cannot use numbers. And proofread. Typos are a good reason to knock you out. It's very difficult to proofread your own work, so proofread it, use spell check, and then get someone else to read it. Don'ts for your resume. Again, don't put the address in. Don't use a photo. There are a number of templates that you can get for free online, some of which have photographs. Again, this is not a good idea. If they want to find you and you have a LinkedIn profile, they may look at that and they'll see you on the LinkedIn profile. But when you send your resume in, do not put a photograph. Again, you don't want to prejudice yourself one way or the other. Don't put in your volunteer work unless you feel it is specifically relevant to the job. I've done some volunteer work at the Taproot Foundation in between jobs while I was in association management. And that work was relevant to what I was doing in association management. So I put it on my resume. But if you're just handing out food at the local food bank and it's not really relevant to the job you're looking for, you need not include that. Don't put in your dates from education. Now, this can be argued one way or the other. My rule of thumb is if you've graduated from college within the last 10 years, but not longer, you can put the date of graduation. Anything more than 10 years, leave it off. Of course, we don't put in any salary information, and we don't put in references. The only place you need to put in references is a CV. That is when you are going for either a teaching job or an administrative job at a college or university, and often they will require the references in advance. Otherwise, don't even say references available upon request. That comes later during the interview process. Okay, so remember the following. The resume and your cover letter are simply an advertisement to get your foot in the door. They're not an autobiography. They need not say everything about you. You just want to put enough information to get people interested in you. Send out your resume with a cover letter, that is via email, cover email, and see what kind of response you get. If you're not satisfied with the response rate, then you may have to go back and tweak your resume and tailor it. Write directly to hiring managers at a company where you want to work. The hiring manager is not the HR manager, unless, of course, you want to work in HR. The hiring manager is a person 2 levels above your job title in your department. So it could be a managing director, or a vice president, or a director or a chief officer. Follow up with a phone call to get a meeting. Remember that the job search is always in your court. You're the one who has to remain active. The ball is in your court to keep on going. Don't expect to hear from people. You're the one who has to do that. All right, so now let's open the floor to questions. Maggie, you want to see what the questions are? I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Amy. That was great. I'll remind everyone now, if you have a question, you can use the chat box or you can email info@savvyladies.org. And a question that we had come in during your presentation is asking, how far back in your career or job history do you recommend going for your resume?
All right, that's an excellent question. And people with many years of experience always ask me that question. So depending on the level of the job you're going for, if you're going for a very high level job and you want to show that you have many years of experience, you can go back 20 years. Usually the rule of thumb is 10 to 15 years. You need not go back further than that. Most jobs will not even say on the job description, oh, we're looking for someone with 20 years of experience. So, you know, it's usually 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 10 to 15 years, that's tops. Again, the exception would be a CV for a job at a college or university, whether in administration or in teaching, where you have to put everything and they're looking for everything.
Okay, thanks. I'm seeing a few questions asking about length of resume. So one question about if 2 pages is acceptable. You talked about don't cram it in for 1 page. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Excellent question. Everyone always asks that. Should I keep to 1 page? All right. The answer is it depends. If you're a recent college graduate with only a few years of experience, you definitely shouldn't have more than 1 page. I don't care what you've done, but you shouldn't have more than 1 page. If you're a middle manager and you're going for that type of position or high level position, you definitely can go to 2 pages. The point is this: if after reading the first half of the first page, they're not interested, they're never going to get to page 2. If the first half of your first page is exciting and interesting enough, then they will read the rest of the resume. Now, if you're an executive, a C-suite executive, that means chief financial officer, chief information officer, chief marketing officer, or CEO, it's okay to have a longer resume. It could be 3 or 4 pages, but those are the exceptions. Okay, Maggie, next question.
Okay, thanks. This one is saying, if you're changing careers, how should you handle the job title being different from anything you've got in your experience?
Okay, that is a great question when you're changing careers. What you have to do is you need to spend some time thinking about your accomplishments and your skills and how those skills will transfer over to this new career. So if you've been writing, but maybe you're writing annual reports, but now you're going to be writing travel logs, you need to give examples of how you can transfer your skill from the past to the present. You do need to put the title of the job you're going for, even though your previous titles were irrelevant. What you may want to do then in that case is highlight the name of the company you work for and put the job title under it and not bold the job title. Some people put the job title first and then the name of their company. In your case, I would just put the name of the company first, then put the job title just underneath, and then just keep going on. You're going to have to do a lot more in terms of your cover letter and your interview in connecting the dots for the next employer. Don't expect employers or hiring managers to make the connection between your skill set and what you did before and what you can do for them. That's your job. You're going to have to convince them. In some cases, even after an interview, you may have to write a proposal that shows that you can do what they're asking for. Okay, Maggie, next question.
Okay, thanks. This one is, what about if you worked recently in nonprofit at a church as a receptionist. Does that hurt putting it on the resume?
Well, what job are you going for? If you're going for a receptionist job, you're going for a receptionist job, okay? If you're not going for a receptionist job and that was just, filling in the time, if you leave it out and you show a gap in her history, then what are you going to say, okay? Or you can say, I was doing volunteer work. So either way, if you put it on, they're going to say, well, why were you doing that? If you don't put it on, they're going to say, well, why weren't you working? So you need to come up with a good reason why. Next question.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. I think this is the last question. It's asking, when I think about my quantifiable accomplishments, most everything has been achieved as part of a team. Can I still be using these accomplishments on my resume? And if so, how can I explain it when it was part of a team?
Yes, you can absolutely use those accomplishments, and you can say as part of a team. So start with the accomplishment, start with the result, and then say, result, we did this, such and such, as part of a team working on such and such. So again, you want to emphasize the results, and yes, you don't want to obfuscate. You want to let people know you were part of a team, and that's fine, because in certain jobs, in certain fields, they're expecting you to work on a team. Any more questions?
I'm not. Oh, yes, I saw one that just came in. So the last one is, what about if you worked for the same college 3 years in a different job title and 2 years in another? Do you separate the two jobs?
All right, this is how you do it. When I worked for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, I had 3 jobs. From 2000 to 2004, I had 1 job. 2005 to 6, 7, 8, I had another job. And then 2009 to 2010, I had a 3rd job. This is how you do it. You put the name of the college first, and to the right, you put the years, all the years that you worked there, not by months, but you put all the years from such and such a year to such and such a year. Then, in reverse chronological order, starting with the most recent title, under that, you'll put the 3 job titles. Under each job title, you'll put a few accomplishments. So all the job titles still go under that one college. You don't repeat the name of the college. Did that answer your question?
I will let you know if we have some feedback. And in the meantime, do you have time for one last question?
Sure, go ahead. Last question.
It's asking if you have any advice for going back to work after 20 years as a full-time mom.
You have to look at your mom experience. What kind of volunteer work did you do? Did you work with the PTA? Did you work at your local hospital? Did you work in a local church, synagogue, mosque, temple? What were the kinds of things that you did? Did you do gardening? I mean, I don't know. When I work with individuals, I do a thorough assessment of their past history, their skills, and then we look at a match of skills and interests and find out, well, what are the possible jobs that you could do? So honestly, you really need some coaching. So I want to thank Maggie, and I want to thank Savvy Ladies for giving me this opportunity to share with you today how to write your resume. Everyone who's been on today will get the link to the recording so you can listen again as many times as you wish. Tomorrow, for those of you who are in New York City or nearby, I'm giving a talk, Finding the Hidden Job Market, at the Public Library on Madison Avenue, 6 p.m. tomorrow. And I also do private coaching. I do group coaching. I'm happy to answer your questions. So you have my email. You can contact me at any time. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Amy. And for anyone who didn't have a chance to write that down, we'll be sending all of this in an email so you can connect with Amy. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you so much, Amy, for presenting. It was really excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.